pardon me if I sound croaky, I need more tea. So, this might be a bit of a contentious video, so let's see how well I can manage to navigate and disable the trip and landmines over here. Now, you guys might have noticed I have not exactly spoken about the current thing. I have seen a significant amount of people attach themselves to the conflict in ways that either scream delusional stupidity or shady association that reeks of the dark money variety, shall we say, an allegiance that would cause many an honest individual to raise their eyebrows and ask some questions. I'm looking at you, Douglas Murray, but anyway. The reason I have refrained from this topic is rather simple. I don't care. I'm not Team J, I'm not Team I, I'm very much more Team C. So I came across this clip with Judge Andrew Napolitano on the Judging Freedom channel, which everyone should subscribe to. It's an excellent channel. I watch it all the time. And he had on one of my favorite individuals, Professor John Mearsheimer. Big fan. He was one of the big foreign power experts, along with Curtis Yarvin, that helped me understand the Ukraine-Russia conflict. It does sort of help when someone tells you all about the conflict about 7 years prior to it hitting and lays out all the sequences of events to a T, bestows upon the man a certain sense of credibility. However, I strongly disagree with what he says here. Normally, I would be very sweary and heavy with the punches. However, considering my reverence for Professor Mearsheimer, I will refrain from any excessive coarseness. So let's see what he says.
Steve Walt and I, as you know, wrote a book called The Israel Lobby and U.S. Foreign Policy that dealt explicitly with this issue.
Right.
And of course, Nixon is correct that Israel is not a significant strategic asset to the United States. There have been times when it has been something of a strategic asset, but not much of a strategic asset.
I don't know about all of you, but I feel this is a rather important fact more people need to know about. Especially the dim-witted swindling meat puppets who call themselves politicians who say, oh, it's America's greatest ally. Why? When it's of no strategic benefit or value to the American citizen, don't you?
You can't make the argument that the special relationship between the United States and Israel, which has no parallel in history. It's just very important to understand that the relationship between the United States and Israel is unprecedented in world history in its closeness.
Okay, this might just be me, but I couldn't care less about how special it is or its historical parallels. Speaking on behalf of the American taxpayer here for a moment, if I may, I would rather like a return on my investment if this relationship is being funded with my money. I don't think that's an unfair expectation of this particular relationship, do you? If it's so special, please explain to me how this is a benefit to the American citizen, would you kindly?
We support the Israelis almost no matter what.
Whoa. Come again?
We support the Israelis almost no matter what.
Okay. In order to make this less contentious, so let's drop the factions here. I'm a man of science. Not this science, mind you, that may as well be a certain rat's Viagra, but anyway. Let's say you have an occupying force in a region who has been expanding in that region for several decades. And this particular force is sponsored by a much wealthier and stronger, frankly, bully, who gives this occupying force a blank check in terms of resources and morality, basically a carte blanche to do whatever the hell it wants. What do you think this occupying force is going to do with that? It's going to exploit the holy hell out of it. And as a consequence, do you not think the neighboring regions will recognize this pattern of behavior and find it, oh, I don't know, a tad problematic? You don't think that might cause a reaction? And do you think the rest of the world is so blind to notice the inability to criticize any of this without being blasted with labels suited to the former half of the last century that might cause them to ask why? Why is this particular group so well defended, so extremely well fortified against any criticism? Why do you think that is? And by the way, you're starting to see the limits of that no matter what aspect. The depletion of political capital, even with people who would otherwise be sympathetic to the idea of retaliation when you've been scorned. But when that retaliation is vastly disproportionate to the original offense, and it seems to be used to further fuel escalation, yeah, people tend to sour on you pretty quickly.
So you can't make a strategic argument for that relationship. And I also think you cannot make a moral relationship. You can make a moral argument, but you have to qualify it in large part because of how Israel has treated the Palestinians. It's hard to see, given the occupation, a moral argument that could possibly explain this incredibly tight relationship. And Steve and I in the book make the argument that it's largely due to domestic politics.
And here is where it gets kind of contentious.
It's largely due to the fact that you have a powerful lobby. And by the way, there's absolutely nothing illegal or immoral or unethical about this lobby.
Man, if I smash X to doubt any heart, I would cause a damn earthquake over here. Yes, there is absolutely something extremely unethical and immoral about lobbying on behalf of a foreign state, especially when it's nothing more than a wealth transfer of American dollars to said foreign state, aided by a bunch of corrupt scumbags who are supposed to represent American interests, and this is in no way a benefit to the American citizen. Why would it be? It's theft. And by the way, legality has nothing to do whatsoever with morality. There have been plenty of laws passed that are extremely immoral. Hell, look at the authoritarian regimes of the last century. Now, I'm aware he hasn't said this, but the language muddies the waters for me.
The United States political system is set up in ways that allow lobbies to have great influence.
Yeah, and if you strip away the political language of that sham, we call it legalized bribery, which is rather immoral, even if it is legal.
We all know about the National Rifle Association.
Right.
Okay, here I'm trying so very hard not to flip my lid, but this is a terrible argument on so many levels. Now, regardless of my personal feelings with regards to the Second Amendment, I will defend it here with fervorous vigor. I would argue the Second Amendment is the cornerstone of Americana legacy. More so than free speech, actually. Anyone can speak, but to possess weaponry up to the point of a cannon, that's a whole nother league. And in case this is not blindingly obvious to anyone with a pulse, every mass shooting, except with the black-on-black variety, I wonder why, is met with a definitely not media-driven public outcry and this performative dance in attempt to gut the Second Amendment, always by some far-left morons, which is not a surprise, they can't read, so the absolutism of the phrase shall not be infringed is kind of lost on them, as is every other facet of objective reality. I would say the NRA, regardless of how weak or inadequate you think it is in reality, exists as a necessary counterbalance that acts to protect against the force that's actively trying to disarm the US population at any given moment. It exists as a function to protect a core component of the American way of life. The lobbying on behalf of a foreign government does not do any of this at all. So to try and compare them is dreadfully inappropriate, a horrible false equivalence.
Right. And of course, lobbying for a foreign country requires you to register as a foreign agent under FARA unless you're lobbying for Israel.
Now, that is one privileged group you never see anyone touch with a 10-foot pole. I wonder why.
Well, that argument is made, and there's no question that organizations like AIPAC could conceivably be put under that rubric, but they're not. And anyway, given what the law is, the Israel lobby is doing nothing illegal, immoral, or unethical.
There is undoubtedly an air of desperation with an attempt at justifying all of this. So, with all due respect, Professor, I would like to know who you're trying to convince here. Because those of us who fly a little too close to the sun, we're not buying this at all.
It's just a good old-fashioned lobby like the National Rifle Association.
Why does the United States veto UN Security Council resolutions calling for ceasefires or peace or pauses in the violence?
Because Israel does not want those.
Wait a minute, hold on here. You mean to tell me you have a damn near constantly revolving yes men of a door that permits basically everything, aided by a powerful lobby group that seeks to escalate tensions and push further for war that in no way benefits the American citizen, but is permitted because of the so-called special relationship that is seemingly built almost absolutely on nothing more than said powerful lobby? And you mean to tell me this is not unethical or immoral? Are you freaking kidding me? I would bet my life there is a substantial amount of Americans who would be resolutely opposed to seeing a single cent of their money going to any cause outside of their own border. Hell, there's a fair few Americans who would hate to see the money go beyond their state borders because they can't stand the federal government.
And the United States is committed to supporting Israel.
Do you think we can consult the American taxpayer who doesn't want to see more of their money go to war? How about we instead have a GoFundMe? And you can throw all of your disposable income there instead of fleecing the American public on behalf of lobbyists. I dare say that is far more ethical and moral.
There's no way that Joe Biden or any other president could walk away from Israel in a situation like the one that we're now in. There's just no question about that.
Why? What would happen if they do? Seriously, what would happen? You know what I dislike about all of this? Oh, so many things, very true. Is the complete lack of any substance to any of this. It's just this hollowed out vagueness and mythical talk of special relationship, like we're in a freaking Disney movie over here. And this talk of always backing them no matter what is not something that would ever be exploited or taken advantage of ever.
It's not peculiar to Joe Biden. I do think that Joe Biden has a very powerful attachment to Israel. He would make the moral argument for supporting Israel down the line. But at the same time, he understands full well, as does Barack Obama and Jimmy Carter and George H.W. Bush, that if you cross the Israel lobby, you will pay a political price.
If you cross this lobby, you will pay a political price. Are you serious? And you want to classify this as a special relationship? Who the hell are you freaking kidding? That is not a special relationship. That's a damn hostage. Cheers for watching, and once again, I apologize for nothing.